Picture, if you will, the Indian subcontinent, as it appeared thousands of years ago, a land of infinite diversity, where mighty rivers carve their paths through fertile plains, where ancient mountains stand as silent witnesses to the passage of time, and where the monsoon winds carry both life-giving rains and the whispered stories of countless generations. Ancient India is not merely a place in history, it is a living meditation on human achievement, spiritual wisdom, and cultural richness that continues to flow like the eternal Ganges through the consciousness of our modern world. Tonight, as we embark on this peaceful exploration together, we shall witness the birth of cities that rivaled any in the ancient world, the emergence of philosophical traditions that continue to guide millions, and the creation of artistic and architectural marvels that still inspire wonder today. Our journey begins in the misty prehistory of the Indus Valley, where sophisticated urban centers flourished along riverbanks over 4,000 years ago. We shall drift through the arrival of pastoral peoples who composed some of humanity's earliest and most profound religious poetry, and watch as great empires rise and fall like the turning of cosmic wheels. The story of ancient India unfolds like a vast scroll painted with the colors of human experience. Here, mathematics and astronomy reached heights of sophistication that would not be matched elsewhere for centuries. Here, the concepts of zero and infinity were first contemplated, and surgical procedures were performed with remarkable skill. Here, the great epics of the Ramayana and Mahabharata were composed, stories so vast and profound that they contain entire universes of wisdom within their verses. As we journey together through these ancient landscapes, you will encounter the Buddha sitting in quiet meditation beneath the Bodhi tree, his insights destined to transform the spiritual understanding of millions. You will walk through the halls of Nalanda, the world's first university, where scholars from across Asia came to study everything from medicine to metaphysics. You will witness the construction of temples so magnificent that they seem to bridge the earthly and divine realms. The gentle rhythm of our narrative tonight is designed to carry you peacefully through these millennia, allowing the profound achievements and timeless wisdom of ancient India to settle softly into your consciousness. Each chapter of our story builds upon the last, creating a complete picture of how this remarkable civilization developed, flourished, and left its indelible mark upon human history. Let yourself be transported now to the banks of ancient rivers, where the first planned cities of the world took shape, where merchants traveled along trade routes that connected distant continents, and where sages contemplated the deepest mysteries of existence. The story we share tonight is one of human creativity, spiritual seeking, and the eternal quest for understanding that defines our species at its finest. As your breathing naturally slows and deepens, allow these ancient voices to speak across the centuries, carrying you gently into the realm of dreams, while enriching your mind with the accumulated wisdom of one of history's greatest civilizations. The journey awaits, peaceful and profound, ready to unfold like a lotus blooming in the first light of dawn. In the beginning, there was the river. The mighty Indus flows from the glacial heights of the Himalayas, carrying with it the fertile silt that would nurture one of humanity's earliest urban civilizations. As we drift back through time to approximately 3,300 BCE, we find ourselves witnessing the remarkable emergence of what archaeologists call the Indus Valley civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization. Picture the landscape as it existed over 4 millennia ago, a vast alluvial plain stretching across what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, crisscrossed by rivers that provided the lifeblood for sophisticated urban centers. The people who created this civilization remain mysterious to us, their script still undeciphered, yet their achievements speak eloquently across the centuries of their remarkable sophistication and organizational abilities. The city of Harappa rises before our minds like a vision from a dream of perfect urban planning. Its streets are laid out in a precise grid pattern that would impress modern city planners, running north to south and east to west with mathematical precision. The main thoroughfares are broad enough for wheeled carts to pass each other comfortably, while smaller lanes branch off into residential quarters where families lived in multi-story brick houses. What strikes us most profoundly about these ancient urban centers is their evident concern for public health and civic order. Every house connects to an elaborate sewerage system, with covered drains running beneath the streets to carry away wastewater. Public wells provide clean drinking water, while large granaries store surplus grain against times of scarcity. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, with its precisely fitted bricks and waterproof construction, suggests ritual bathing practices that echo through to modern Hindu traditions. As we wander through these ancient streets in our imagination, we encounter the daily life of Harappan citizens. Skilled craftsmen work with bronze tools, creating implements that are both functional and beautiful. Potters' wheels spin as artisans shape clay into standardized vessels, while other specialists work with precious stones, creating jewelry and seals that display remarkable artistic sophistication. The Harappan people were master traders, their influence extending across a network that reached from Central Asia to Gujarat. Small square seals made of steatite bear intricate carvings of animals, humped bulls, rhinoceroses, elephants, and tigers, accompanied by pictographic script that continues to puzzle scholars. These seals likely served as markers of ownership or authority, and their widespread distribution suggests a complex economic system based on trade and commerce. The civilization's agricultural foundation rested on the cultivation of wheat, barley, peas, and sesame, while domesticated cattle, water buffalo, and fowl provided protein. Cotton, one of humanity's first textile fibers, was grown and woven into cloth, making the Harappan people among the world's earliest cotton producers. The regular flooding of the rivers, combined with sophisticated water management systems, supported a population that may have numbered in the millions at its peak. Perhaps most intriguingly, Harappan society appears to have been remarkably egalitarian. Unlike their contemporaries in Mesopotamia and Egypt, we find no evidence of great palaces or elaborate royal tombs. The houses, while varying in size, do not show the extreme disparities of wealth that characterize most ancient civilizations. This suggests a society that valued collective welfare over individual aggrandizement, a social philosophy that would echo through subsequent Indian civilization. The uniformity of weights and measures across the vast Harappan territory speaks to a level of administrative coordination that required sophisticated governmental structures. Standard brick sizes, consistent pottery styles, and uniform urban planning principles maintained across hundreds of settlements suggest a civilization that valued order, efficiency, and standardization in ways that would not be seen again until much later periods of history. The mysterious decline of the Harappan civilization around 1900 BCE has puzzled historians for decades. Climate change may have played a role, as the monsoon patterns shifted and rivers changed their courses. Some settlements show signs of flooding, while others appear to have been gradually abandoned as water sources dried up. The arrival of new peoples from the northwest may have contributed to the transformation, but the process appears to have been gradual rather than catastrophic. As the great cities of the Indus Valley slowly emptied, their inhabitants dispersing into smaller settlements throughout the subcontinent, they carried with them the accumulated knowledge and cultural practices of their sophisticated civilization. The traditions of urban planning, water management, craft specialization, and trade would resurface in later Indian civilizations, like seeds waiting for the proper season to bloom again. The legacy of the Harappan people whispers to us across the millennia through archaeological remains that reveal a civilization of remarkable achievement and mystery. Their story reminds us that human societies have always possessed the capacity for sophisticated organization, artistic expression, and technological innovation. As we prepare to continue our journey through ancient India's unfolding story, we carry with us the memory of these first urban dwellers, whose lives along the ancient rivers laid foundations that would support the magnificent civilizations yet to come. As the Harappan cities fade into archaeological memory, new voices begin to sing across the Indian landscape. Around 1500 BCE, pastoral peoples speaking an Indo-European language begin to settle in the fertile plains of northern India, bringing with them oral traditions that will flower into some of humanity's most profound religious and philosophical literature. These newcomers, who called themselves Arya-meaning noble ones, were primarily herders and agriculturalists who lived in tribal societies led by warrior chiefs called rajas. Their most precious possessions were their cattle, horses, and the sacred knowledge preserved in their hymns and rituals. Unlike the urban sophistication of the Harappans, the early Vedic people lived in small villages, their lives intimately connected to the rhythms of nature and the cycle of seasons. The sacred songs of these ancient peoples, composed and transmitted orally with extraordinary precision, form the collection known as the Vedas, literally knowledge, in Sanskrit. The oldest of these, the Rig Veda, contains over 1,000 hymns addressed to various deities who embody the forces of nature. As we listen to these ancient voices across the centuries, we hear humanity's earliest recorded attempts to understand the cosmic order and humanity's place within it. Picture the scene as dawn breaks over an ancient settlement along the banks of the Saraswati River, now lost to time, but then flowing strong and clear. The community awakens to the sound of cattle lowing and the chanting of priests preparing the sacred fire. Agni, the god of fire, serves as messenger between the human and divine realms, carrying prayers and offerings upward with the rising smoke while bringing divine blessings down to earth. The Vedic pantheon reflects a people intimately connected to their natural environment. Indra, the king of gods and wielder of the thunderbolt, battles the demon Vritra to release the monsoon rains that bring life to the land. Varuna maintains cosmic order and moral law, while Surya drives his chariot of light across the sky each day. These deities are not distant abstractions, but active participants in daily life, invoked for protection, prosperity, and wisdom. The ritual life of Vedic society centers around the sacred fire ceremony, where offerings of clarified butter, grain, and somaya, mysterious intoxicating drink array, made to the gods. The priests, known as Brahmins, maintain the precise pronunciation and performance of the rituals, believing that the very fabric of cosmic order depends upon the correct execution of these ceremonies. The Sanskrit language itself becomes sacred, its sounds thought to possess creative power capable of influencing both earthly and celestial realms. As centuries pass, Vedic society grows more complex and stratified. The original threefold division of society, priests, warriors, and common people, evolves into the fourfold Varna system that will profoundly influence Indian civilization. Brahmins maintain religious knowledge and perform rituals. Kshatriyas serve as rulers and warriors. Vaishyas engage in agriculture and trade, while Shudras provide service to the other three groups. This social organization, while creating hierarchy, also establishes mutual interdependence and specific duties for each group. The later Vedic period, roughly 1000 to 600 BCE, witnesses significant transformations in both society and thought. As the pastoral peoples settle into agricultural communities, they clear forests and establish permanent settlements across the Gangetic Plain. Iron tools replace bronze implements, making agriculture more efficient and enabling the cultivation of rice in the fertile river valleys. Population increases, and small kingdoms begin to emerge under powerful rajas who control increasingly larger territories. The composition of the later Vedic texts, the Samaveda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda reflects these changing circumstances. The Samaveda contains melodies for chanting the hymns, transforming religious practice into a sophisticated art form. The Yajur Veda provides prose formulas for ritual performance, while the Atharva Veda includes spells and incantations for practical purposes such as healing, protection, and success in worldly endeavors. Perhaps most significantly, this period sees the composition of the Upanishads, philosophical texts that represent a revolutionary development in human thought. The Upanishads, whose name means sitting near a teacher, record the insights of sages who began to question the efficacy of ritual and seek direct experience of ultimate reality. These texts introduce concepts that will become central to Indian philosophy: the identity of the individual soul, Atman, with universal consciousness, Brahman, the cyclical nature of time, and the law of karma that governs moral causation. The Chandogya Upanishad contains the famous teaching Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that, expressing the fundamental unity underlying apparent diversity. The Katha Upanishad explores the nature of death and rebirth, while the Isha Upanishad presents a vision of the divine pervading all existence. These profound insights emerge not from academic speculation, but from the direct spiritual experience of realized sages, establishing a tradition of inner exploration that continues to influence seekers worldwide. The Vedic vision of cosmic order, called Rita, establishes the foundation for later Indian concepts of dharma, righteous duty, and natural law. This understanding sees the universe as an integrated whole where moral, physical, and spiritual laws operate in harmony. Human society, when properly organized and conducted, participates in this cosmic order, creating prosperity and peace for all beings. As the Vedic age draws to a close around 600 BCE, it has established the fundamental patterns of Indian civilization: the importance of sacred knowledge preserved through oral tradition, the integration of spiritual and worldly life, the understanding of cosmic order and human dharma, and the recognition that ultimate reality transcends, yet includes all phenomenal existence. These insights, first articulated in the forest clearings and sacrificial grounds of ancient India, will provide the foundation for all subsequent developments in Indian religion, philosophy, and culture. The Vedic heritage continues to flow like an underground river through Indian civilization, surfacing in later developments while maintaining its essential character as humanity's earliest systematic exploration of the relationship between consciousness, cosmos, and human purpose. As the 6th century BCE dawns across the Indian subcontinent, we witness a period of extraordinary transformation that will reshape both the political and spiritual landscape forever. The simple tribal societies of the early Vedic period have evolved into complex kingdoms, while revolutionary spiritual teachers emerge to challenge established religious authority and offer new paths to liberation from suffering. The fertile Gangetic Plain now supports numerous kingdoms, each centered around fortified cities that serve as centers of trade, administration, and culture. 16 major states, known as the Mahajanapadas, compete for territory and influence across northern India. Among these, 4 kingdoms stand supreme: Magadha in the east, Kosala in the central region, Vatsa along the Yamuna River, and Avanti in the west. Each represents a different model of governance and cultural development, yet all participate in a shared civilization that is distinctly Indian. In the kingdom of Magadha, we observe the emergence of India's first major imperial power. Located in what is now Bihar, Magadha benefits from rich iron deposits, fertile agricultural land, and strategic control over river trade routes. The capital city of Rajagriha rises majestically among surrounding hills, its massive stone fortifications protecting a population of merchants, artisans, and administrators who serve the ambitious rulers of the Haryanka dynasty. The transformation from pastoral society to urban civilization brings both opportunities and challenges. Cities bustle with commercial activity as trade routes connect the Indian Ocean ports with Central Asian markets. Skilled craftsmen organize into guilds that regulate production and maintain quality standards. Banking and credit systems develop to support long-distance commerce, while standardized weights and measures facilitate exchange across political boundaries. Yet this material progress comes with social costs that sensitive souls find increasingly troubling. The rigid hierarchy of the Varna system has hardened into hereditary castes, limiting social mobility and creating spiritual anxiety among those who question whether birth circumstances should determine one's entire life path. The elaborate Vedic rituals require expensive offerings that enrich the priestly class while impoverishing ordinary people. Most troubling of all, the endless cycle of desire, acquisition, and loss seems to trap human beings in perpetual suffering rather than leading to lasting happiness. Into this world of questioning and spiritual seeking steps a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama, born around 563 BCE in the small kingdom of the Shakyas. According to traditional accounts, his father shields him from the realities of suffering, aging, and death, surrounding him with luxury and pleasure in the royal palace. Yet, when the prince finally ventures beyond the palace walls, his encounters with an old man, a sick person, a corpse, and a wandering ascetic shatter his protected worldview and inspire his great spiritual quest. The story of the Buddha's enlightenment unfolds like a gentle meditation on the human condition. After abandoning his royal position, family, and wealth, Siddhartha spends 6 years practicing extreme asceticism, nearly dying from starvation and self-mortification. Recognizing that neither indulgence nor deprivation leads to wisdom, he adopts a middle path of moderate practice and sits in meditation beneath a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya. Through the long night of his awakening, Siddhartha penetrates the deepest mysteries of existence. He perceives his own previous lives stretching back through countless rebirths, understands the workings of karma that bind beings to repeated suffering, and finally achieves the direct realization that extinguishes all craving and delusion. At dawn, he becomes the Buddha, the awakened one, having discovered the path to liberation that he will spend the remaining 45 years of his life sharing with others. The Buddha's first sermon in the deer park at Sarnath presents the 4 noble truths that form the foundation of his teaching. Suffering, he explains, is an inherent characteristic of conditioned existence. This suffering arises from craving and attachment to impermanent phenomena. The cessation of suffering is possible through the elimination of craving. The path to this cessation consists of right understanding, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, the Noble Eightfold Path. What makes the Buddha's teaching revolutionary is not merely its content, but its approach. Unlike the Vedic tradition that emphasizes ritual performance and divine grace, Buddhism offers a practical methodology that any sincere seeker can follow regardless of birth circumstances. The Buddha refuses to discuss metaphysical questions that do not directly contribute to the elimination of suffering, focusing instead on the psychological and ethical transformation necessary for liberation. Simultaneously, in the neighboring kingdom of Magadha, another spiritual revolutionary, named Vardhamana Mahavira, is establishing the Jain tradition. Born into a Kshatriya family around 599 BCE, Mahavira follows the teachings of earlier spiritual teachers called Tirthankaras ford makers, who help souls cross the river of existence to reach liberation. Jainism emphasizes the principle of ahimsa or nonviolence to such an extreme degree that advanced practitioners strain their drinking water and sweep the path before them to avoid harming microscopic life forms. The Jain vision of the universe as eternal and uncreated, populated by countless souls pursuing liberation through their own efforts, offers yet another alternative to Vedic cosmology. Mahavira's emphasis on individual responsibility for spiritual development, combined with detailed analysis of the karmic consequences of every action, creates a religious system of remarkable ethical sophistication. These new spiritual movements, find fertile ground among the merchant communities of the growing cities. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of traditional Brahmanical society, both Buddhism and Jainism welcome followers from all social backgrounds and emphasize personal spiritual achievement over inherited status. Wealthy merchants become major patrons of monasteries and temples, finding in these new religions a validation of their commercial activities and social aspirations. The political landscape of this era reflects similar dynamism and innovation. Republics like the Vajis experiment with assemblies and collective decision-making, while monarchies develop sophisticated administrative systems. The concept of dharma begins to encompass both cosmic order and human governance, with rulers expected to protect subjects and maintain justice according to moral principles rather than mere personal preference. As this transformative century draws to a close, the foundations are laid for developments that will shape Indian civilization for millennia to come. The philosophical insights of the Buddha and Mahavira will spread far beyond India's borders, while the political innovations of kingdoms like Magadha will culminate in the subcontinent's first great empire. The synthesis of spiritual seeking with material progress, the integration of diverse communities within expanding political structures, and the ongoing dialogue between tradition and innovation establish patterns that remain characteristic of Indian civilization. The seeds planted in this remarkable period of human awakening continue to bear fruit across cultures and centuries, reminding us that periods of rapid change often produce the most profound insights into the eternal questions of human existence and purpose. The 4th century BCE witnesses the emergence of India's first great empire as the political innovations and spiritual insights of the previous era culminate in extraordinary achievements of governance, culture, and human understanding. The story unfolds like an ancient scroll, revealing the rise of dynasties whose influence will echo through the centuries, establishing models of leadership that integrate worldly power with spiritual wisdom. In the kingdom of Magadha, a brilliant young man named Chandragupta Maurya seizes power around 321 BCE, overthrowing the established dynasty and embarking upon a campaign of conquest that will unite most of the Indian subcontinent under a single rule for the first time in recorded history. His rise coincides with the retreat of Alexander the Great from India, creating a power vacuum that the ambitious Mauryan prince fills with remarkable speed and efficiency. The architect of this imperial vision is Kautilya, also known as Chanakya, whose treatise on statecraft, the Arthashastra, reveals the sophisticated political thinking underlying Mauryan success. This ancient manual of governance combines practical wisdom about administration, diplomacy, and military strategy with ethical principles that recognize the ruler's responsibility for the welfare of all subjects. The Arthashastra describes a centralized state with an elaborate bureaucracy, efficient taxation systems, and a network of spies and informants that maintains order while protecting against both internal rebellion and external invasion. Picture the Mauryan capital of Pataliputra as it appears at the height of imperial power, a magnificent city stretching along the banks of the Ganges, protected by massive wooden fortifications and home to perhaps 500,000 inhabitants. The royal palace, described by foreign ambassadors as surpassing even the grandeur of Persian courts, contains halls where the emperor holds audience with delegates from across the known world. Trade caravans arrive daily, carrying silk from China, spices from South India, and gold from Central Asia, while the imperial mint produces standardized coinage that facilitates commerce across the vast empire. The administrative system established by the Mauryans demonstrates remarkable sophistication in managing the diverse populations and regions brought under imperial control. Provincial governors, appointed directly by the emperor, oversee territories that stretch from the Hindu Kush Mountains to the Bay of Bengal. Local customs and languages are generally respected, while imperial law provides a framework for justice and dispute resolution. The system of spies described in the Arthashastra serves not only for intelligence gathering, but also for ensuring that local officials serve the people's welfare rather than their own enrichment. Under Chandragupta's son, Bindusara, the empire expands southward, incorporating the Deccan Plateau and establishing diplomatic relations with Hellenistic kingdoms founded by Alexander's successors. Greek ambassadors like Megasthenes provide detailed accounts of Mauryan society, describing a prosperous civilization where agriculture, trade, and crafts flourish under stable governance. The cultural synthesis between Indian and Greek traditions produces artistic innovations that will influence artistic development for centuries. The most remarkable transformation in Mauryan history occurs during the reign of Chandragupta's grandson, Ashoka, who ascends the throne around 268 BCE. Initially following the expansionist policies of his predecessors, Ashoka conquers the independent kingdom of Kalinga in a brutal campaign that costs hundreds of thousands of lives. However, the carnage of this victory produces a profound spiritual crisis that leads to the emperor's conversion to Buddhism and a complete transformation of imperial policy. The edicts that Ashoka carves on rocks and pillars throughout his empire reveal a ruler genuinely committed to governing according to Buddhist principles of compassion and non-violence. These inscriptions, written in local languages and scripts, communicate directly with subjects across cultural and linguistic boundaries, explaining the emperor's vision of dharma as the foundation of good governance. Ashoka abandons wars of conquest, establishes hospitals for humans and animals, plants medicinal herbs along roads, and sends Buddhist missionaries to spread the message of non-violence and compassion to neighboring lands. The Ashokan ideal of the dharmic rulera king who governs according to moral principles rather than mere political expediency establishes a model that will influence Indian political thought for millennia. The emperor presents himself not as a divine figure, but as a fellow seeker committed to spiritual development and the welfare of all beings. His edicts emphasize religious tolerance, encouraging subjects to respect all traditions while personally following the Buddha's path. Ashoka's missionaries carry Buddhism beyond India's borders for the first time, establishing the foundations for its eventual spread throughout Asia. His son Mahinda introduces Buddhism to Sri Lanka, where it takes root and flourishes, while other missions travel to Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and even the Mediterranean world. The Third Buddhist Council, convened under Ashoka's patronage, standardizes Buddhist doctrine and practice, ensuring the preservation and transmission of the Buddha's teachings to future generations. Following Ashoka's death around 232 BCE, the Mauryan Empire gradually fragments as regional governors assert independence and foreign invaders pressure the northwestern borders. The last Mauryan emperor is overthrown around 185 BCE, initiating a period of political fragmentation that lasts for several centuries. Yet the memory of Mauryan achievement and the ideal of unified governance under dharmic principles remains alive in Indian consciousness. The eventual reunification of northern India occurs under the Gupta dynasty, which establishes power in Magadha around 320 CE. The Gupta period, often called the Golden Age of Indian civilization, witnesses unprecedented achievements in science, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, and the arts. Unlike the Mauryans, who emphasized political unity and moral governance, the Guptas create conditions for cultural and intellectual flowering that produces lasting contributions to human knowledge. Under rulers like Chandragupta II and Kumaragupta, the Gupta court becomes a center of learning that attracts scholars from across Asia. The mathematician Aryabhata calculates the value of pi with remarkable precision, explains the causes of solar and lunar eclipses, and proposes that the Earth rotates on its axis. The physician Sushruta describes surgical procedures including cataract removal and plastic surgery, while astronomers create accurate calendars and predict celestial events. The literature of the Gupta period reaches heights of artistic sophistication that establish classical Sanskrit as one of the world's great literary languages. The poet Kalidasa composes dramas and epic poems that combine emotional depth with philosophical insight, while the Puranas preserve and elaborate traditional stories in forms that make ancient wisdom accessible to ordinary people. The great Sanskrit epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, reach their final forms during this period, becoming repositories of cultural values and spiritual teachings that continue to guide Indian civilization. The Gupta synthesis integrates diverse traditions into a coherent worldview that accommodates both spiritual seeking and worldly achievement. Hindu temple architecture reaches new heights of artistic expression, with structures like the temple at Deoghar demonstrating the integration of sculpture, architecture, and religious symbolism. The cave temples of Ajanta and Ellora, created during this period, showcase artistic achievements that rank among humanity's greatest treasures. As the Gupta era gradually wanes in the 6th century CE, invasions by Hunnic tribes and the emergence of regional kingdoms fragment political unity once again. Yet the cultural achievements of the Golden Age continue to influence Indian civilization and, through trade and missionary activity, spread Indian knowledge and artistic traditions throughout Asia and beyond. The legacy of both Mauryan governance and Gupta cultural achievement establishes India as a major center of world civilization, contributing lasting insights to humanity's shared heritage of wisdom and beauty. As we drift through the golden centuries of ancient Indian achievement, we encounter a remarkable flowering of human creativity and understanding that establishes India as one of history's great centers of learning and artistic expression. The period from roughly 200 BCE to 600 CE witnesses extraordinary developments in philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, and the arts that continue to influence human civilization today. The philosophical traditions that emerge during this era represent humanity's most systematic attempts to understand consciousness, reality, and the path to liberation from suffering. The 6 orthodox schools of Hindu philosophy, Samkhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, and Vedantayak, offers a unique perspective on fundamental questions while contributing to an integrated understanding of existence that accommodates both rational inquiry and spiritual experience. Samkhya philosophy, attributed to the sage Kapila, presents a dualistic worldview that distinguishes between consciousness, Purusha, and primordial matter, Prakriti. This analytical system identifies 25 fundamental principles that account for all manifest phenomena, providing a framework for understanding how the eternal, inactive consciousness becomes apparently involved in the world of change and activity. The Samkhya analysis of the 3 Gunasattva, Rajas, and Tamas explains the qualities that combine in different proportions to create the entire universe of forms and experiences. The yoga philosophy of Patanjali builds upon Samkhya foundations to present a practical methodology for achieving liberation through the systematic control of mental modifications. The Yoga Sutras, composed around the 2nd century CE, describe an 8-fold path including ethical restraints, observances, physical postures, breath control, sense withdrawal, concentration, meditation, and finally, samadhi, the state of pure consciousness beyond subject-object duality. This methodical approach to spiritual development influences not only Indian traditions, but eventually spreads worldwide as a practical system for physical health, mental clarity, and spiritual growth. The Nyaya school develops sophisticated methods of logical reasoning and debate, establishing principles of valid inference that parallel developments in Greek logic while maintaining distinctly Indian characteristics. Nyaya philosophers analyze the sources of valid knowledge perception, inference, comparison, and testimony, while developing techniques for distinguishing truth from error. Their debates with Buddhist and other schools create a tradition of rigorous philosophical discourse that sharpens understanding and eliminates misconceptions. Vaisheshika philosophy focuses on the nature of reality at its most fundamental level, proposing an atomic theory that anticipates later scientific developments. According to Vaisheshika teaching, all physical phenomena consist of combinations of eternal, indivisible atoms, ANU, that unite and separate according to karmic forces. This materialist analysis complements the consciousness-focused approaches of other schools, providing a comprehensive understanding of both subjective and objective reality. The development of Vedanta philosophy during this period culminates in the systematic presentation of non-dualistic understanding by teachers like Gaudapada and later Shankara. Vedanta demonstrates through reason and scriptural analysis that the apparent multiplicity of the world is ultimately illusory, and that individual consciousness and universal consciousness are identical. This teaching, expressed in the great statement, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is indeed Brahman, presents perhaps the most radical and profound understanding of reality ever articulated in human thought. Parallel to these philosophical developments, Indian mathematics reaches extraordinary heights of achievement that establish concepts and methods not discovered elsewhere until much later periods. The decimal place value system, including the revolutionary concept of zero as both a placeholder and a number, emerges in India around the 5th century CE. This innovation makes possible complex calculations that would be impossible with earlier systems, enabling advances in astronomy, engineering, and commerce. The mathematician Brahmagupta, working in the 7th century, provides the first systematic treatment of negative numbers and develops rules for calculating with positive and negative quantities. His work on quadratic equations and his formula for calculating the area of cyclic quadrilaterals demonstrate mathematical sophistication that will not be matched elsewhere for centuries. The concept of infinity, ananta, as a mathematical quantity also emerges from Indian contemplation, reflecting the culture's comfort with concepts that transcend ordinary experience. Indian astronomers create models of planetary motion that achieve remarkable accuracy through careful observation and mathematical analysis. Aryabhata's calculation that the Earth rotates on its axis explains the apparent movement of the stars and demonstrates understanding of cosmic mechanics that challenges the geocentric views prevalent in other civilizations. Indian astronomical texts describe methods for calculating eclipses, planetary positions, and calendar systems that remain in use today. The medical science of Ayurveda reaches systematic formulation during this period in the works of Karaka and Sushruta. The Karaka Samhita presents a comprehensive understanding of health as the balanced integration of body, mind, and consciousness, while prescribing treatments that address root causes rather than merely symptoms. Sushruta's surgical manual describes procedures including cataract extraction, kidney stone removal, and plastic surgery techniques that demonstrate remarkable anatomical knowledge and technical skill. The literary achievements of this Golden Age established Sanskrit as one of the world's great classical languages. The poet Kalidasa creates works of such beauty and profundity that he is often compared to Shakespeare for his ability to combine entertainment with deep insight into human nature. His drama Shakuntala, describing the love between a king and a forest maiden, explores themes of desire, separation, and reunion with psychological subtlety and poetic grace that continue to move readers across cultures and centuries. The great Sanskrit epics reach their final forms during this period, as oral traditions are preserved in written texts. The Ramayana, attributed to the sage Valmiki, tells the story of Prince Rama's exile, the abduction of his wife Sita, and his victory over the demon king Ravana. This epic serves not only as entertainment, but as a manual of dharmic behavior, illustrating how individuals can maintain righteousness even under the most challenging circumstances. The Mahabharata, at over 100,000 verses, the world's longest epic poem, presents the complex story of a dynastic war while exploring every aspect of human experience and spiritual teaching. Within this vast narrative, the Bhagavad Gita emerges as perhaps India's most influential philosophical text, presenting Krishna's teachings to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Gita's synthesis of knowledge, devotion, and action as complementary paths to liberation provides a practical philosophy that addresses the concerns of people engaged in worldly responsibilities while seeking spiritual fulfillment. The artistic achievements of this period find expression in temple architecture and sculpture that ranks among humanity's greatest treasures. The rock-cut caves of Ajanta and Ellora demonstrate the integration of architecture, sculpture, and painting in service of spiritual expression. The Ajanta paintings, created over several centuries, depict Buddhist stories and teachings with artistic sophistication that reveals deep understanding of human psychology and emotion. The Buddhist monasteries carved into living rock at Ajanta create spaces that facilitate both community life and individual contemplation. Each cave serves multiple functions: assembly halls for communal chanting, meditation cells for solitary practice, and residential quarters for the monastic community. The architectural planning demonstrates sophisticated understanding of acoustics, lighting, and air circulation that creates environments conducive to spiritual development. The paintings that adorn these cave walls represent one of the world's great artistic achievements. The famous image of the Bodhisattva Padmapani at Ajanta Cave, one conveys compassion and wisdom through subtle gradations of color and form that seem to glow with inner light. The artist's ability to suggest three-dimensional form on flat surfaces, combined with profound understanding of spiritual symbolism, creates works that function simultaneously as aesthetic objects and meditation supports. The Ellora caves, created somewhat later, demonstrate the religious harmony characteristic of Indian civilization by housing Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain temples within the same complex. The magnificent Kailasa temple, carved from a single piece of rock, represents perhaps the most ambitious architectural project ever undertaken. This massive structure, dedicated to Lord Shiva, required the removal of over 200,000 tons of rock and demonstrates engineering capabilities that continue to amaze modern architects. The development of metallurgy during this period produces works of extraordinary beauty and technical sophistication. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, erected during the Gupta period, demonstrates knowledge of metallurgical processes that prevented corrosion for over 15 centuries. Bronze sculptures from this era, including the famous dancing Shiva images, combine technical mastery with profound spiritual symbolism to create objects that serve both as artistic treasures and focal points for meditation and worship. The textile arts flourish as trade networks carry Indian fabrics to markets throughout Asia and beyond. The production of silk, cotton, and wool textiles reaches levels of sophistication that make Indian fabrics highly prized luxury goods in Roman markets. The techniques of dyeing, weaving, and fabric decoration developed during this period established traditions that continue to influence textile production worldwide. Musical theory reaches systematic formulation in treatises that analyze the mathematical relationships underlying harmonic and rhythmic structures. The concept of raga-melodic frameworks that evoke specific emotions and spiritual states emerges as a uniquely Indian contribution to musical understanding. These sophisticated systems of tonal organization create music that serves not merely as entertainment, but as a means of spiritual transformation and healing. The integration of all these artistic developments creates a cultural synthesis that expresses the Indian understanding of existence as fundamentally unified despite apparent diversity. Whether expressed through philosophy, mathematics, literature, architecture, or music, the underlying vision remains consistent. Reality is one, though it manifests in countless forms, and human life finds fulfillment through the recognition of this underlying unity. As this golden age of achievement gradually transitions into new historical periods, its contributions continue to influence human civilization in ways both obvious and subtle. The philosophical insights, scientific discoveries, and artistic creations of ancient India become part of humanity's shared heritage, demonstrating the remarkable capacity of human consciousness to penetrate the deepest mysteries of existence while creating works of lasting beauty and practical value. As our gentle journey through ancient India draws toward its peaceful conclusion, we find ourselves contemplating the remarkable continuity that characterizes this extraordinary civilization. Unlike many ancient cultures that have passed into archaeological memory, the traditions, insights, and practices developed in ancient India continue to flow like an eternal river through the consciousness of humanity. The philosophical systems elaborated by ancient Indian sages continue to influence spiritual seekers and scholars worldwide. The yoga traditions developed by Patanjali now serve millions of practitioners globally as methods for maintaining physical health, mental clarity, and spiritual growth. The non-dualistic insights of Vedanta philosophy continue to inspire philosophers and scientists seeking to understand the relationship between consciousness and reality. Buddhist meditation practices, first systematized in ancient Indian monasteries, now offer practical methods for reducing stress and increasing well-being in contexts ranging from hospitals to corporate boardrooms. The mathematical innovations of ancient India, particularly the decimal system and the concept of zero form, the foundation of all modern calculation and computer science. Without these Indian contributions, the technological civilization we inhabit today would be impossible. Similarly, the astronomical observations and calculations of ancient Indian scientists provided accurate calendars and navigational methods that facilitated trade and cultural exchange across vast distances. The medical insights preserved in Ayurvedic texts continue to offer valuable perspectives on health and healing that complement modern medical approaches. The Ayurvedic understanding of individual constitution types, the importance of prevention over cure, and the integration of physical, mental, and spiritual factors in health maintenance provides holistic approaches that many contemporary practitioners find invaluable. The artistic and architectural traditions established in ancient India continue to influence creative expression throughout South and Southeast Asia. Temple architecture that integrates sculpture, painting, and symbolic design creates sacred spaces that facilitate spiritual experience while demonstrating the highest levels of artistic achievement. The principles of proportion, harmony, and symbolic meaning developed in ancient Indian art continue to guide craftsmen and artists seeking to create works that nourish both aesthetic sensibility and spiritual understanding. Perhaps most significantly, the ancient Indian vision of unity underlying diversity continues to offer wisdom for addressing contemporary challenges. The understanding that all existence participates in a single, underlying reality provides a foundation for environmental consciousness, social harmony, and individual fulfillment that transcends cultural and religious boundaries. The Indian concept of dharma, righteous action, in harmony with cosmic order, offers guidance for ethical behavior that balances individual fulfillment with collective welfare. The great literary works of ancient India continue to speak across cultures and centuries with undiminished power. The Bhagavad Gita's integration of spiritual wisdom with practical guidance for engaged living continues to inspire leaders, scholars, and seekers of all backgrounds. The psychological insights of the great epics provide timeless understanding of human nature and the eternal challenges of moral choice in complex circumstances. The institutional innovations of ancient India, including universities like Nalanda and Taxila, that attracted students from across Asia, established models of international learning communities that continue to influence educational institutions worldwide. The tradition of rigorous philosophical debate, the integration of practical and theoretical knowledge, and the understanding of education as transformation rather than mere information transfer, provide valuable perspectives for contemporary educational reform. The religious tolerance and philosophical pluralism characteristic of ancient Indian civilization offer wisdom for addressing contemporary challenges of cultural diversity and religious conflict. The ancient Indian understanding that truth can be approached through multiple paths, while remaining eternally one provides a framework for respecting diversity while maintaining unity of purpose. The economic innovations of ancient India, including sophisticated banking systems, standardized currencies, and international trade networks, established patterns of commercial organization that continue to influence global economic development. The ancient Indian understanding of wealth as a means to dharmic fulfillment rather than an end in itself offers valuable perspectives on sustainable economic development that benefits all members of society. The agricultural techniques developed in ancient India, including sophisticated irrigation systems, crop rotation methods, and organic farming practices, provide time-tested approaches to sustainable food production that remain relevant for addressing contemporary environmental challenges. The ancient Indian understanding of agriculture as a sacred activity that maintains harmony between human society and natural systems offers wisdom for developing food production methods that nourish both people and the earth. The scientific methodology developed in ancient India, combining careful observation, mathematical analysis, and experimental verification, established approaches to understanding natural phenomena that continue to influence scientific research. The ancient Indian comfort with concepts like infinity and zero demonstrates intellectual sophistication that enabled advances in mathematics and science that would not be achieved elsewhere for many centuries. The psychological insights of ancient Indian traditions, including detailed analysis of mental states, meditation techniques for developing awareness, and understanding of the relationship between individual and universal consciousness, continue to provide valuable resources for addressing contemporary challenges of mental health and spiritual fulfillment. The ancient Indian recognition that consciousness is fundamental to existence offers perspectives that complement and enrich contemporary neuroscience and psychology. As we prepare to conclude our peaceful journey through the vast landscape of ancient Indian civilization, we recognize that this story has no true ending. The insights, achievements, and wisdom of ancient India continue to flow through human consciousness like an eternal river, nourishing new developments while maintaining their essential character. The sages who first contemplated the nature of reality in forest clearings thousands of years ago continue to speak through their preserved teachings, offering guidance and inspiration to contemporary seekers. The mathematical innovations that first emerged in ancient Indian academies continue to enable technological advances that transform human life. The artistic techniques developed in ancient temples and monasteries continue to inspire contemporary creators seeking to express the deepest truths of existence through form and beauty. The governmental ideals of dharmic leadership continue to influence political thought and practice in democratic societies worldwide. The vision of ancient India, that existence is fundamentally one, though it appears as many, that individual fulfillment and collective welfare are ultimately identical, and that human life finds its highest expression in the pursuit of truth, beauty, and goodness, continues to offer wisdom for addressing the challenges and opportunities of contemporary life. As you drift gently into peaceful sleep, carrying with you the accumulated wisdom of this extraordinary civilization, may the insights and achievements of ancient India continue to enrich your understanding and inspire your own contributions to humanity's ongoing story. The river of wisdom that began flowing in the ancient Indus Valley continues its eternal journey, carrying the seeds of transformation and understanding to all who open themselves to its nourishing waters. In the quiet depths of sleep, the eternal teachings of ancient India continue their gentle work, weaving themselves into consciousness like golden threads in an infinite tapestry of human wisdom and achievement. Rest peacefully, knowing that you participate in this continuing story of human awakening, and that the light first kindled in ancient India continues to illuminate the path toward understanding, compassion, and fulfillment for all beings.